I sat at the defense table in a cold county courtroom, hands flat on the polished wood, trying not to clench my fists. Across from me, Lauren looked like she was at a wine tasting. Perfect posture, that smug little smile, whispering into her lawyer's ear like they were old friends sharing an inside joke. He grinned while laying out what he called a fair and generous settlement. What he really meant was, here's what we'll leave him with, so he can scrape by while she keeps everything that matters. I didn't flinch, but I could feel my jaw tighten. Lauren didn't even look at me most of the time. When she did, it was that same damn look she used to give me when a deal fell through, or a contractor delayed permits, like I was a disappointment she had to manage around. She laughed quietly once, like this was already over, like she'd won before I even walked in. Her lawyer kept talking, acting like I should be thankful for a few assets and a quick exit. He called me supportive, well-intentioned, and not financially ambitious, which was just a polite way of calling me irrelevant. Said Lauren had carried the bulk of the financial weight for years, framed me like a nice guy who married up, and should be grateful he lasted this long. Every word was calculated to make me small. Frank Holloway, my attorney, sat beside me. Old school guy, gray suit, steady hands. Before we walked in, he told me, let them get comfortable. Let them think they've got the whole story. So I stayed quiet. Let them talk. When it was our turn, Frank didn't argue. Didn't raise his voice. Just nodded politely, accepted the terms they offered, like he didn't have a single objection. Then he slid a thick binder out of his briefcase and dropped it on the table with a flat thud. Your Honor, we filed an amended financial disclosure this morning, he said calmly. It's all in there. Lauren's lawyer blinked. Excuse me? Frank didn't repeat himself. He just sat back and folded his hands. The other guy opened the binder, flipping pages fast like he was looking for a trap. Lauren leaned over to see what was inside, her expression shifting. The smile dropped, just a little. She wasn't laughing anymore. I didn't move, didn't say a word. Just watched the cracks start to show. Lauren didn't crack right away in that courtroom, but the second her lawyer flipped through that binder, I saw it, her confidence shift. She glanced over at me like she was seeing something new, something she didn't recognize. And that's when my mind slipped, right back to where it all started, before the suits, the office towers, the fake smiles. Back when we were just two broke kids with a dream and a leased storefront in Columbia, South Carolina, that smelled like burnt coffee and moldy carpet no matter how much Febreze we used. Lauren stood out from day one. She was sharp, dressed like a pro even when we couldn't afford dry cleaning, always knew how to talk to people. I handled everything behind the scenes, contracts, listings, marketing flows, accounting, hell, even the busted AC. I remember standing in front of a whiteboard stained with old expo markers, sketching out referral programs, drip campaigns, pricing models tied to neighborhood turnover rates. She'd lean in with a coffee and say, "Keep it simple, babe." While I turned her gut feelings into math that actually worked. She had charm, I had systems. But charm gets applause. Systems don't. When the deal started closing and the money trickled in, people showed up. First, a couple brokers who saw potential. Then a local investor group looking to back a female-led boutique firm. And don't get me wrong, Lauren had hustle. But I was the one pulling 15-hour days, studying data, testing ad copy, finding ways to convert cold leads while she was staging open houses and shaking hands. Still, the spotlight found her. At our first real estate conference in Atlanta, we stood at a mixer with 30, maybe 40 industry vets. She wore this burgundy blazer and heels that made her 2 inches taller than me. When someone asked who I was, she laughed and said, "Oh, that's my husband. He keeps me sane and organized." Sane and organized. That was the first time it stung, but I played along, shook hands, made jokes, told myself it wasn't a big deal. Temporary, I thought. Let her shine now. We'd level up together. But it kept happening. The more she got recognized, the more my title got downgraded, from co-founder to operations support, then just my husband. At meetings, I'd walk investors through quarterly projections, and they'd nod politely, then turn to Lauren for the real answers. When the business hit a milestone, someone would send her flowers with a card that read, "Your vision is inspiring." I'd be the one who actually set the goal, tracked it, fought tooth and nail to hit it. But no one asked, no one cared. She never corrected them. One night, after we landed our first 7-figure client, I brought up maybe adding my name to the website under leadership. She laughed and said, "It's just cleaner with one face. You don't even like being in the spotlight, right?" I didn't answer. I just closed my laptop and went back to crunching numbers for the next quarter. That was the turning point. I stopped being a partner and became a helper. Then just the guy in the corner, keeping the gears turning. And when people came around, contractors, clients, press, Lauren would give them the same line. "Oh, he's just great with spreadsheets." No mention of the models, the retention strategies, the vendor negotiations I ran solo. No credit when my planning saved us from cash flow disaster more than once. I told myself it didn't matter. We were building something together. But the truth was, the story she told the world only had room for one name. After a while, I stopped expecting credit. I just kept the business running, mostly from behind a screen, mostly in silence. The more money Lauren made, the more arrogant she got. Not just confident, arrogant. And it came out the most when we were around other people, especially her people. At dinner with her colleagues, she took over every conversation. Markets, trends, aggressive growth targets. She threw numbers around like weapons, loud and polished. If I tried to jump in with something technical or offer a different take, she'd cut me off fast, sometimes mid-sentence. "No, babe, that's not quite right." Or worse, "Don't worry, he loves getting lost in spreadsheets." Everyone would laugh. I'd just nod like it was funny, even though it burned. Her sister, Jenna, was the worst. That woman never liked me. At one barbecue, she looked right at me and said, "Must be nice being semi-retired while Lauren keeps climbing." Lauren smirked and said nothing. I waited for her to correct it. Just a word. Nothing. Later that night I asked her, "Do you really think I'm semi-retired?" She rolled her eyes. "God, it's a joke. Don't be so sensitive." That's how she handled it every time. A joke, a laugh, a wave of the hand like I was overreacting. What she never mentioned was that I did the tax filings, kept our licenses up to date, handled vendor negotiations, built new client pipelines from scratch when her brokers flaked out. When deals stalled, I was the one calling city offices about permit delays or zoning issues. I worked late into the night more times than I could count, digging us out of holes she didn't even realize we were in. But none of that looked good in a photo. None of that made her shine. So, she told people I liked tinkering with back-end stuff. Said I kept busy while she ran the vision. Clients would ask what I did at the firm, and she'd say, "Oh, he keeps us organized. He gets antsy without a project." I started keeping track. One by one, the small cuts. There was the time she emailed our team and referred to me as a helpful resource for compliance stuff. No name, just a tool. The time she met with an investor at our house and told him, "I used to be more involved, but now I enjoy a slower pace." The time she gave a podcast interview and said, "Running a business as a woman is tough. You don't always get the support you need at home," while I was literally editing her presentation in the next room. I'm not saying I needed a damn parade, but I was tired of being erased. And deep down, I think she liked it that way. So long as I stayed useful and quiet, she didn't have to admit we built the company together. One night, we had dinner with a developer she was trying to impress. Guy had money, and Lauren was laying it on thick. Vision, innovation, strategic expansion. He turned to me at one point and said, "So, what's your role in all this?" Before I could answer, Lauren jumped in with a laugh. "Oh, he keeps the trains running behind the scenes. But don't worry, he's happiest when I let him be the spreadsheet guy." I didn't smile. I didn't say anything. I just picked up my drink and let it sit in my hand while she charmed him through dessert. That was the thing. She loved having me nearby when it helped her. When she needed a fix, a contract reviewed, a late-night panic solved, I was useful. But when it came to public credit, I was in the way. And slowly, I got the message. My value only existed when it made her look better. The rest of the time, I was just part of the furniture. It was a Tuesday afternoon, late enough in the day that I'd already fixed 2 back-end billing errors and chased down a title agency that misfiled a lien release. I was in the den, laptop open, trying to untangle a payment discrepancy between 2 vendors Lauren insisted on using because of their branding sense. She was in the kitchen on speakerphone, pacing like she always did during important calls. I wasn't trying to listen in, but I couldn't help it. Her voice carried. "Yes, we've been expanding aggressively this quarter," she said, light and professional. "I think you'll be impressed with the numbers." Pause. Then a man's voice, older, confident. Probably one of those senior investors she liked to flirt business with. "And your husband?" he asked. "What's his role in the business these days?" There was a second of silence. Then came the laugh, light, dismissive, practiced. "Oh, he's incredibly supportive," she said. "Great with logistics, loves to stay behind the scenes. He's not really involved in the real decisions." I froze. Not rage, not heartbreak, just silence. Inside me, something shifted. Snapped, maybe, but not like glass. More like a lock giving way. She kept talking, something about autonomy and strategic planning, but I wasn't listening anymore. I sat there, watching the cursor blink on my screen, and realized I didn't exist in her world. Not really, not where it mattered. I was a side character in the company I helped build, in the life I thought we shared. I didn't walk into the kitchen, didn't call her out, didn't even make a sound. That night, while she scrolled through her emails in bed, I stepped into the hallway with my phone and scrolled through old contacts. Took me a minute to find the number, but when I saw his name, I knew. Marcus Reed, former operations consultant. Smart, sharp. The kind of guy who never bought Lauren's Queen of the Empire act. He picked up on the second ring. "Damn, it's been a while," he said. "Yeah. Listen, you still consulting?" "Sometimes. Depends who's asking." I paused. "I'm thinking about building something, quietly." There was a beat of silence. Then Marcus's voice dropped. "What happened?" "I finally got tired of being erased." He exhaled. "Tell me what you've got in mind." We talked for an hour. I told him about the holes in the mid-market logistics space. Companies stuck between needing optimization and not being able to afford the big firms. I told him I'd been sketching models, tracking trends, pulling together vendor lists. He didn't ask why I hadn't left Lauren yet. He didn't need to. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Solid. Like I was standing on ground I'd poured myself. Back in the bedroom, Lauren was already asleep, her laptop still glowing on her chest. Calendar full of meetings, pitch decks, photo shoots. Not a single file with my name on it. I didn't wake her, I didn't touch her. I just closed the laptop, set it on the nightstand, and stood there for a second, looking at the woman who used to be my partner. She hadn't changed, I had, and I wasn't going back. The next morning, while Lauren was fussing over a photo shoot schedule and texting her assistant about fabric swatches, I opened a new bank account in my name only. That same afternoon, I drove 20 minutes out to an industrial park on the edge of West Columbia and signed a 6-month lease on a one-room office wedged between a forklift repair shop and a metal supply distributor. Fluorescent lights, carpet that crunched underfoot, and a busted HVAC unit that made a sound like it was grinding rocks. But it was mine. No branding, no fake polish, no Lauren. I used money from a brokerage account she never asked about. She handled the spotlight. I handled the books. That mistake was on her. Marcus and I set up late-night calls, him walking me through how to frame my value, how to sell process improvements without sounding like a corporate drone. I filed the LLC paperwork myself, designed the pitch deck at 2 a.m, spent the first week cold emailing logistics managers at every forgotten mid-size firm I could find between Georgia and Tennessee. My excuse at home was contract consulting. She barely blinked. Said, "Glad you got something to keep you busy." I nodded and kissed her on the forehead before heading out. Stomach tight, brain on fire. The first month was nothing but rejection. One guy laughed and said, "You're offering lean operations on a budget? What are you, a unicorn?" Another ghosted me after 3 Zoom calls. I landed one mid-tier warehouse operator, and after 2 weeks of work, he pulled out because his nephew decided he wanted to get into operations. That one stung. I'd already redesigned his routing framework. Still, I kept grinding. I lived on gas station coffee and cheap pad thai from the strip mall next door. Worked through weekends, no vacations, no breaks. Lauren never noticed. She was knee-deep in her expansion campaign, filming social content about scaling with heart and doing interviews for local business journals. By the end of the second month, I'd rewritten my pitch 5 times, trimmed down my onboarding process, and stopped trying to compete with big firms. I wasn't them. I didn't need to be. I was faster, cheaper, and 10 times more focused. I knew exactly what problems mid-sized firms had. because I'd spent a decade fixing them in the dark while someone else took the bow. That's when it started to click. A referral came in from a guy I'd helped for free during my testing phase. That led to another, and another, small contracts, but steady. I learned to offer short-term pilots, 30 days, tight goals, low risk. Once they saw results, they stuck around. By month 5, I had 5 active clients, all recurring. I hired a part-time virtual assistant, set up automation to handle reporting, put every dollar back into growth. And Lauren still hadn't asked a single question. She thought I was just clearing my head, enjoying my little side hustle. I let her believe it. Let her keep posting about female leadership and the importance of delegating to strong teams. Teams I built the back-end systems for once upon a time. One night, I got home late. She was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, watching a segment she filmed earlier that day. "Babe," she said, not looking away from the screen, "can you believe I used to run this whole thing out of a strip mall?" I stood in the kitchen, staring at her reflection in the window above the sink. "Yeah," I said. "Hard to believe." She didn't hear the edge in my voice. She was too busy watching herself on screen, nodding along like the audience mattered more than the room we were standing in. By month 6, I had 1 serious offer on the table and 3 firms in the pipeline. I set up a holding structure to shield the valuation, ran everything through a third-party accountant. My name was clean. My business was mine. Lauren's calendar was still stacked with keynote speeches, photo ops, and luxury brunches with business leaders she'd never return calls to once the cameras were off. Meanwhile, I was building something real, quiet, unpolished, untouchable. She was obsessed with her image, and I'd finally stopped caring about it. It was our anniversary. I didn't plan anything big, didn't book a dinner or write a card. I just grabbed a decent bottle of wine and figured I'd surprise her. Maybe take her out for a quick bite, talk like we used to before everything turned into PR strategy and quarterly goals. A long shot, yeah. But part of me needed to see something, if there was anything left. Her new office was downtown, glass and metal, full of open space and polished concrete. She never brought me there, said it was a different vibe, like I wouldn't fit in. I parked out front, left the wine in the passenger seat, and took the elevator to the 5th floor. The door was half open. She was inside with a man, mid-40s, expensive blazer, the kind of watch you don't buy unless you're trying to prove something. They were standing close, laughing quietly, heads tilted in. She touched his arm, not casually, intimately, familiar. I knocked once. She turned, startled for half a second, then smiled like I'd just delivered a package. "Hey," she said. "Didn't know you were coming by?" The guy looked confused. I looked at her. She didn't flinch. "This is Tyler," she said, motioning toward him. "Tyler, this is an old friend of mine. He's between jobs right now." Old friend, not husband, not business partner, not even my name, just erased. I didn't say a word, didn't ask who he was or what the hell that was supposed to mean. I just nodded once, turned around, and walked out. She didn't follow. I hit the parking lot with no emotion left, no anger, no heartbreak. Just done. I sat in the car for 5 minutes, staring at that bottle of wine on the seat. Then I started the engine and drove home. The next morning, I called Frank Holloway at 8 on the dot. "You ready?" he asked, voice steady like always. "Yeah," I said. "Let's file." He didn't ask why. He already knew. From that point on, I operated like a machine. No slips, no venting, no second thoughts. I tightened everything. My business, my records, my paper trail. I scrubbed digital footprints, shifted assets, locked accounts. Anything tied to her, I separated. Every contract went through clean legal channels. I put Marcus on retainer under a third-party firm, buried the connection 6 layers deep. Lauren, meanwhile, floated through the next few weeks like nothing happened. I kept the same routine, left early, came home late. She assumed I was still finding myself, or whatever spin she'd settled on. She had no idea what was coming. One night, I caught a glimpse of her calendar while she was logged in on the kitchen laptop. Dinner with Tyler, again, marked strategy sync. Sure, I didn't say a word. Let her lie. Let her think she was still the one writing the narrative. I just kept building my firewall. My company wasn't just growing, it was maturing. Contracts were tight, operations lean, clients loyal, and most important, everything was mine. The difference now? I wasn't working to support someone else's story. I was protecting my own, and I wasn't going to lose it in a courtroom. Frank slid the binder across the polished courtroom table like it was nothing. Lauren's lawyer gave it one lazy glance, until he caught a glimpse of the numbers. His whole posture changed. Eyebrows creased, hand tightening on the page, flipping faster. 2 pages in, he stopped talking. 4 pages in, he leaned over to Lauren and whispered something sharp into her ear. Her eyes flicked down at the report. Her jaw twitched. She flipped through it herself now. Chart after chart, revenue tables, structured cash flow, and near the back, clean as day, pending acquisition proposal. $18.7 million. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, hands folded, watching her confidence start to crack. She looked up like she didn't understand what she was seeing. Frank didn't gloat. He just cleared his throat and said, "Your Honor, this disclosure reflects the current standing of Mr. Bryson's independent firm. All documentation is verified and notarized." Her lawyer tried to speak, but his voice caught. He asked for a recess. Judge granted it. Lauren stood slowly, still staring at the last page, and followed her lawyer out like someone pulled her off script in the middle of a performance. I stepped out into the hallway, leaned against the wall. It was quiet. Cold air, fluorescent lights, the faint hum of vending machines down the corridor. Then I heard her heels. She came around the corner fast, binder still in her hands, face stuck somewhere between disbelief and sales pitch. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "When did this even start?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the company? About a year ago." She blinked like she was doing math in real time. "You built all that while we were still married?" "I was always building something," I said. "You just stopped noticing." She shook her head and tried a softer tone. 18 million? That's life-changing, Nathan. I mean, we could have done something with that together. "There is no we," I said flat. "Not anymore." She stepped in closer. "Come on, you're being emotional." "No, Lauren, you erased me, remember? At parties, in meetings, on calls with investors. You said I wasn't part of the real decisions, so now you don't get to claim any part of this." She opened her mouth, then shut it. Her voice dropped. "You used our resources?" "No," I cut in. "I used my savings, my time, my talent. And all the nights you spent posting videos about female entrepreneurs, I was in a warehouse office building, something that didn't need your name on it." She tried to laugh it off, nervous, high-pitched. "It's just surprising. I didn't think you had it in you." I smiled. "Exactly." She went quiet. Then she stepped back, scanning me like she was trying to read a man she never bothered to understand. "You really think this changes everything?" she asked. I leaned in just a little. "It already has." Frank stepped into the hallway, checked his watch, nodded toward the door. "Time to head back in." I walked past her without a glance. She stood there holding the binder like it was radioactive. Whatever performance she came here prepared to give. It didn't matter anymore. The audience was gone. The script was dead. I wasn't the side character anymore. I was the exit. 12 months later, I sat in a quiet boardroom overlooking a downtown skyline I used to resent. 2 attorneys and a corporate development lead sat across from me, sliding a revised term sheet across the table. The acquisition offer was off. I didn't need to sell. We were finalizing a strategic partnership instead. Equity retained, full control mine. Marcus was on my left, flipping through the packet, nodding like he already knew the outcome. I initialed the last page, capped the pen, and leaned back in my chair. That was it. I wasn't exiting, I was leveling up. On my own terms. After the meeting, while waiting for the elevator, Marcus handed me his phone. "Thought you'd want to see this." It was a local business article. Headline, "Top real estate firm faces staff. Exodus amid leadership scrutiny. Lauren's firm." Buried 3 paragraphs in, it mentioned internal issues, high turnover, and clients backing out of contracts. I handed the phone back without a word. I didn't smile, didn't feel vindicated. It wasn't about her anymore. I walked out of that building 10 pounds lighter. Not in weight, just in noise. The pressure to prove something, explain myself, justify my worth, it was gone. I went home and grilled steaks in my backyard with 2 old friends I hadn't seen since before the wedding. We laughed about dumb high school stories, watched a game on mute, and talked about nothing that mattered, which made it matter more. I got a dog, started running again, cooked for no one but me. And every night I left my phone in the kitchen and slept like a man who didn't owe the world an apology. No more walking on eggshells. No more being erased in rooms I helped build. Lauren tried to reach out once, sent an email that opened with, "Hope you're well," and closed with, "We made a great team once." I didn't reply. I archived it and moved on. This wasn't revenge. This was restoration. She took credit for everything I was until I became someone she couldn't recognize. That was her mistake. The real win wasn't the deal, the money, or the silence that followed her name. It was waking up and knowing I didn't need her to see me anymore. I saw myself. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. What would you have done if your spouse erased your role in your own success? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.